A lot of fans might not realize this, but The Lion King was almost an entirely different story. Scar may have been closer to being saved than we ever realized. And according to this theory, if his mother had just a little more time with him, he might not have become the villain he's known as today. But how exactly did Scar's mom almost save him from becoming the villain when we don't even know that much about her? Well, according to this theory, fans can learn everything they need to know about Scar's mom based on the circumstances that surrounded his birth and the idea that she may have kept Scar a secret at first. Now, you might be thinking, that's weird, because if she was such a great mom, then she wouldn't want to keep her cub a secret. And you're probably right, but according to this theory, Uru, the name of Scar Mufasa's mom, didn't necessarily keep the cub himself a secret, but simply the fact that she was pregnant with him. In the fan fiction that a lot of this theory is based on, Uru would have been pregnant with Scar during a time when the Pride Lands were suffering from a massive drought. In order to save the Pride Lands, Uru volunteered to find a viable water source and the reason behind the drought. However, had she told Ahadi, who was her husband, the king, and father of her children, that she was pregnant, he probably wouldn't have let her go. This is why she may have chosen to keep her pregnancy with Scar a secret, at least until she returned to the Pride Lands. According to the story, once Uru had saved everyone in Pride Rock, she revealed to Ahadi that she was pregnant, and it wasn't long after that the king and queen welcomed their second cub into the world. Now, it's important to note that according to this theory, as well as other Lion King stories that are known but technically not considered canon, the villainous lion didn't always go by the name Scar. According to The Lion King: A Tale of Two Brothers, Scar was given the name Taka at his birth, and even though it's not a canon story, most fans consider this to be Scar's original name. After Uru returned home and gave birth to Taka, who from now on I'll be referring to as Scar to spare any confusion, Ahadi was very happy with his slightly bigger family. But if their family was so happy, how did Scar turn out to be so different from his brother Mufasa? Well, that's most likely because each of the lion brothers seemed to take after different parents in a very noticeable way. You see, according to this theory, before marrying Ahadi, Uru was the daughter of an outlander. This means that she likely would have had similar features to the outlander lions and lionesses that we've seen in The Lion King and The Lion Guard. These features consist of darker fur and green eyes. This would not only explain why Scar was born with darker fur than Mufasa was, but also why his mane is black rather than the orangish brown color that Mufasa and Simba had. Now, much in the way that Scar may have taken after his mother, there's a good chance that Mufasa took after his father, Ahadi. Now, in any mention of Ahadi in the books or in fan fiction, he can basically be described as the exact same way as Mufasa. Not only that, but as you know from The Lion King, Mufasa was the elder brother, which meant that he was the rightful heir to the throne. Do you know what that means? It means that there's a chance that Ahadi had very different parenting techniques when it came to dealing with Mufasa and Scar, and the same can probably be said for Uru too. You see, with Mufasa being the next in line for the throne, Ahadi would have had a vested interest in raising him properly. This would mean spending extra time with Mufasa while leaving Scar to either play by himself or hope for the attention of his mother. Thankfully, according to this theory, Uru would have been exactly what Scar needed. You see, like many Lion King theories, this one follows the idea that Scar not only wanted but needed as much attention as he could possibly get. Watching Ahadi spend so much time with his brother Mufasa rather than himself likely only made this feeling or need much worse. As a good and attentive mother, Uru likely would have noticed this and began to smother Scar with all the love and attention that he was thirsting for. It may have almost been instinctual for her to treat Scar in a way that made him feel as good as Mufasa likely felt anytime he got to spend time alone with Ahadi, the king. Now, I want it to be pointed out that I'm not saying Ahadi was a bad father by any means, but he was the king of the Pride Lands, which means that he likely had a full schedule in order to maintain the peace and prosperity of the land. This means that he likely had very little time to spend with either of his children. However, because Mufasa was next in line to be king, whenever Ahadi did have time, it was most likely spent with Mufasa and not Scar. But surely there was more to Scar becoming a villain than Ahadi simply giving Mufasa more attention, right? Well, interestingly enough, it's suggested by this fan theory, as well as some Lion King spin-off stories, that Scar may have been heavily influenced by animals in the Outlands to turn against his pride. In The Lion King: A Tale of Two Brothers, Scar befriended the hyenas as well as some of the other animals in the Outlands. In fact, according to the book, it was Banzai, Shenzi, and Ed who convinced Scar to try to set Mufasa up when they were younger by sending an angry Cape buffalo his way. Now, even though the story's not canon, it still shows that there were characters in the Outlands that had an influence over Scar. However, this theory actually takes it one step further. You see, I mentioned before that Uru may have been the daughter of an Outlander, which would mean that Scar's grandparents, or at least one of them, could have been from the Outlands. According to this theory, Scar's grandfather was actually a lion named Choyo, who was adopted into a Hadi's family. That said, much like Scar being compared to Mufasa, Choyo received almost no attention from the family, while a Hadi was constantly being trained to become the king. The theory continues by explaining that Choyo eventually became an Outlander, likely by his own choice, but that didn't stop the lion from feeling envy towards his adopted brother. It's actually suggested in the theory that Choyo met with Scar in the Outlands on more than one occasion, where he actually played a role in convincing the lion to turn against his family. He likely would have been able to spot the same resentment in Scar toward Mufasa that he felt toward a Hadi, and it would have been easy for him to manipulate the young lion by using that connection. Here's the thing though, even if this theory is accurate, wouldn't you think that Uru would have continued to pay close attention to Scar to make sure that he felt the love that he needed to continue on the good path? Interestingly enough, that's exactly what the theory suggests that she did, at least for as long as she was alive. As I mentioned before, Uru loved Scar and Mufasa with all of her heart, which meant that she would do anything for her family. She was probably there for Scar whenever he returned from the Outlands with dark thoughts in his mind. Whether she tried to take his mind off of whatever plans Choyo may have planted into Scar's head, or she just listened to her son as he vented about the hardships of being the smaller and younger child, Uru would have continued to be a very strong support system for Scar, all the way up until her dying day. Because, as you know from The Lion King, even though they're animated, these animals can't live forever. Due to their absences in The Lion King 1 and 2, it's safe to say that King Ahadi and Queen Uru died sometime before the events of the first movie. Well, according to this theory, due to what great support the king and queen had from the Pride Lands, there's a good chance that they died from old age rather than something nefarious. Regardless though, eventually Uru would have had to leave the world of The Lion King, and Scar would have likely felt pain that he never knew before. The only question left is, was Uru's death really enough to make Scar turn to the dark side? I mean, the clear answer here is yes, because the big cat was indeed the cunning villain in The Lion King after all, but I don't think it was only the death of Uru that sent him over the edge. You see, if Uru happened to pass away before a Hadi did, then not only would Scar have lost his only support system, but he also would have had to watch as his brother and father grew closer and closer to each other every day. Not only that, but Scar would have been forced to watch Mufasa's transition into becoming the next king without having anyone to talk sense into him or keep him calm when those dark thoughts started to rise up in him again. Even if a Hadi had passed away first, Uru would have only been able to keep Scar calm and collected for so long. Mufasa was always destined to become the king, a position that Scar thought he was better suited for, and every bit of praise that his older brother got inevitably would have seemed like it was meant to spite him. Scar was the type of character whose entire backstory acted as the perfect recipe for becoming a villain. This means there might have been a lot of different paths for him to get there, but whether Uru was around or not, Scar would have turned out to be just as evil as the Lion King made him out to be. What do you think though? Is there any chance that Uru's influence could have made Scar an upstanding member of the Pride, or was he always destined to become the villain? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.